political opponents, because that's also possible. And then third, also, is there a trade-off between efficiency and effectiveness of the government and anti-corruption laws? For instance, Pakistan today is buying very expensive LNG on spot rates, and the previous government was unable to do a long-term deal. And when you ask them, and they've said this on TV many times, that they said that they were scared of anti-corruption laws or NAB laws. So that's a huge cost to the government of Pakistan, because some previous ministers were scared of those laws. So then you have to see what is the effectiveness and what is the advantage of the anti-corruption laws. And inshallah, we will hire, in consultation with the IMF and civil society of Pakistan, we will constitute a commission of some of the best experts from around the world. I hear that New Zealand and Singapore are two of the least corrupt countries in the world, so hopefully we'll get experts from there. We'll get experts from Pakistan, and I told yesterday that I will get experts from Pakistan Business Council. If there are other civic organizations who want to name experts, I'm more than happy to include and do a comprehensive review, because my feeling is, and this is, I don't have any firm data to back this up, that my feeling is that, even though we've had NAV for now 20-some years, corruption in Pakistan has not gone down. Similarly, we've had these PEPRA rules in Pakistan for 20-some years, but it's not clear to me that Pakistan procures at a much lesser rate compared to the international rates, things, goods and services, compared to what it was doing before the PEPRA rules. So these rules have actually become more of a straitjacket, also an excuse to some people to not work. But these rules have become a straitjacket and not allowing people to work. So that's the anti-corruption part. There is also this part that people talk about, friendly countries aiding us, and some people have said that that's a prior condition. I can say that it's not a prior condition. But yes, there is a case that we have a $4 billion financing gap that we have to find during the year, and we will. And as I have said to many people many times, that we are talking to a friendly country about buying Pakistani shares. There is no possibility of us sharing a government-to-government shares on a government-to-government basis. So we are now amending the law appropriately to be able to sell those shares. Even though we've not even started negotiating with that country yet, there's already accusations of, how we are selling the family silver and all that. We're only selling shares of companies which are already traded in the Karachi Stock Exchange. We're only selling a little bit shares of each company, so we're not selling majority stakes or ownership stakes or management stakes. And finally, these shares will be sold on buyback basis. So, if I sell something for $100 today and I can buy this for $105, then really the price is not relevant, right? Because at any given price, I can always sell it back, buy it back for 5%. So all of these will be a repo. I will have a buyback clause on those shares. So any allegations of anything inappropriate, I think, just falls flat. But my point was that there is a friendly country, for instance, that is willing to buy our shares, and that would help us go a long way towards funding our financing gap. There are other countries who are also willing to buy our power plants, Baloki and Haveli Badr-Shah, the two federal government-owned power plants. That have been on the auction block for some time, but there are friendly countries that are willing to buy. Again, it's very easy to figure out the market price, because we already know what tariffs they have, and if you know what tariffs they have, you already know what profits they have, and if you know that, then you can just figure out a price-earning ratio and then figure out a fair market price. There are also friendly countries who are talking to us about giving us energy. Fuels, whether gas or electricity, or whether gas or petrol or diesel or fuel or crude oil on credit, deferred payment. We already have some deferred payment facilities with some countries, and there's talk of enhancing. So I have more than actually $4 billion of financing. So although it is not a prior condition, but even if it were, it's more than met. So the IMF thing is going to happen. The other thing that we've done, and I'm not talking about the fact that we've averted default, because we've done that and it's been talked about, and we've not defaulted, and we've averted default now, alhamdulillah. But the other thing that we've done is also, when we first came, we put a official ban on a lot of items, which has caused a lot of difficulties to a lot of people. And inshallah ta'ala, within the next couple of weeks, we will try to get rid of those bans. So those bans will be lifted, the bans on imports of certain goods. For instance, pet foods and things like that, and we'll get rid of those bans. But at the same time, we have now put some prior registration conditions on prior approval conditions or prior information condition on certain other imports of raw materials, etc., and of new machines, and that, along with fuel prices coming down and fuel requirements going down, has really reduced my imports. Let me just say that when we were subsidizing diesel and petrol and motor gasoline, for instance, the demand for that had gone up. One, because price was cheap, but also because people were actually hoarding it, and the companies were also storing it as much as they could. Resultantly, Pakistan, which normally has 6 days of diesel, ended up with having, I think today it has probably like 42, 43 days of diesel. So 7 times the normal storage. Similarly, Pakistan, which has maybe 10 days of motor gasoline, today has 30 days of motor gasoline. So we've actually imported a lot more motor gasoline and diesel, and we probably have 3 to 4 months of, or maybe even more, of furnace oil. So we'll not be importing a lot of those things in the next, we haven't imported them in the last few days, and we are not going to import them a lot in the next fortnight or so. So that is also reducing our import bill, plus some other things that we've done, administrative measures, plus the increase in interest rates, the dollar rate going up, contraction of demand. All of that combined has resulted in our imports, at the port this year. This is as of day before yesterday. The number was $3.77 billion, and since there were, I think, 4 working days left, so we were expecting that the number would be about $4.3, $4.4 billion. I mean, that's a remarkable contraction. In fact, we are pretty comfortable even if the imports are $5.5 billion. But what would happen is that from next month onwards, inshallah, the incoming dollars in Pakistan by way of exports and remittance will be more than the outgoing dollars from Pakistan by way of imports or some debt repayments, debt servicing, I should say. And because we will have more imports, we will have more inflow of dollars than outflow of dollars, we will inshallah then, therefore, not have the pressure on Pakistani rupee that exists today, and we will, as you will see, that Pakistani rupee will not be under pressure anymore. At that point, we will either be able to build reserves or, the rupee will appreciate, but that's a decision that, I leave to the short-term future, 2-3 weeks from now. Today, yesterday, for instance, I know that there was more inflow of dollars than outflow of dollars, but that was just one day. But we've actually controlled the situation quite a bit now, so that imports have really reduced in Pakistan, and inshallah now the export plus remittance, which is and remittance, think of remittance as export of labor, that export of labor and goods now is more in Pakistan than imports. So we've actually turned that corner, and now we've become safe. Of course, this is only a temporary measure. I want demand to expand, and I want economy to grow. And after a few months of breather, these sets of policies will give us to this quarter, will institute policies that once again bring back growth in Pakistan, but an inclusive growth, and most importantly, a sustainable growth. Pakistan has not been able to have sustainable growth. We've seen Pakistan go bust every few years. Every time we go beyond north of 5% growth, we go bust. So we have to come up with a sustainable growth, and it turns out that the way to achieve sustainable growth is happily also an inclusive growth. And rather than getting the manufacturing sector, which imports a lot of machineries and then also raw materials, rather than growing the manufacturing sector, if we start growing by farming sector and the urban poor, hopefully, whose consumption basket does not include a lot of imported goods, if we can somehow enrich them and trickle up or percolate up the growth, then hopefully we'll have an inclusive growth, but most importantly, a sustainable growth. The outlook going forward, I think, is very positive to Pakistan. Slowly and slowly, our bond prices are creeping up. Right now, just now, I saw JP Morgan now advising some of its clients to buy, I think, Pakistani bonds, which are due this year because they think it's a very good buy. And so, I mean, you know, I think, yes, the world is facing very difficult circumstances. Yes, the post-Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war situation is worse for Pakistani government finances and in terms of in Pakistani economy than perhaps even COVID. And yes, during COVID, a lot of multilateral institutions, World Bank, IMF included, Asian Development Bank, and also bilaterally, US, China, other countries have really had, and the G20 countries really helped us out, whether by deferring our interest payments or repayments, by donating vaccines, and by just giving, you know, loans, you know, non-sterilized loans, etc., etc. But in this post-Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war crisis, we've not seen either the multilateral institutions or even bilateral countries show the same sort of understanding or empathy towards developing countries, especially oil importing developing countries such as Pakistan. So when oil prices shot up to $139, or you know, they were more than north of 120 for a long time. Edible oil prices, you know, shot up to, I think, you know, a historic high. When the price of urea went to historic highs, the price of wheat went to, you know, decades high. All of those things made life very difficult for poorer countries, and especially the poorer segments of poorer countries. But now, but I think that in the last 4 months that since our government has come, and the belt tightening that we've done, the austerity measures that we've taken, have allowed us to survive this very difficult period. And now that the prices of some food items is coming down, I think that would be a very useful and very beneficial for our Pakistani economy, and especially our poor people. But that is not to say that we can afford even for a minute to let our guard down. We still have to walk that narrow path towards stability. We still have to walk that very narrow path towards financial viability. Yes, we've avoided default. Yes, we've avoided default, but we can still make mistakes and go back. Things are very, very challenging, you know, because of the commodity super cycle and oil prices and all that. Interest rates increase. You know, the US dollar is on a historic high. So all of those things combined, the US dollar being a historic high, interest rates increase, in worldwide inflation, supply chain disruptions, lead us to act, I think, hopefully in a very conservative manner, in a very mature manner, and to not make mistakes. So, although ideally, if you become a finance minister of your nation, and this is my second opportunity, you should want to bring growth, you should want to decrease inflation, provide employment to your people. But unfortunately, those really are not at this point my top priorities. They will be in a few months, but at this point, I'm very happy that we've averted the default, and my most priority is to ensure that Pakistan is getting more inward dollars than the dollars going out, and that Pakistan stays on that narrow but straight path towards stability. And hopefully once we've achieved stability, then we can talk about prosperity. So thank you very much for listening to me and giving me a chance to talk to you. I know that much of my talk was a little bit away from the SOE topics, but my two messages for SOEs would be that yes, we need to have reform. They will do it. I think we should try and privatize. And where we can privatize again, and our difficulty in privatization is also due to laws, not due to this. And if we can improve the privatization laws and how we govern SOEs, I think things will become better. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.